2021 meeting of the New York State Hearing Aid Dispensing Advisory Board to order. I just want to mention, actually, we're in the Albany office and we're spaced 6 feet apart and we have plexiglass partitions in between. So while I'm speaking, I'm going to remove my mask. I think some of the other presenters will do the same. If anyone has an issue with that, let me know. Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll begin with the roll call. I'll indicate the board member's name. Let me know if you're present, please. Jerry Bergman.
Here.
Peter Fisher. Peter, I believe I see you.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
Eric Freeman.
Here.
Sharon Gavin.
Sharon's having trouble signing in.
Okay, I'll go to the next. I believe Anna Kim is excused. Anthony Macera is excused. Is Ann Orsine on? Okay, she mentioned that she might not be at this meeting. Marie Ann Zappone-Wabley?
Present.
Okay, thank you. Sharon's still trying to get in.
Right.
I think maybe we'll just move on, and if she's able to attend, I don't believe that will affect the quorum. With Sharon, Dave, will we have a quorum today?
No, I believe
Nope.
with Sharon, when she joins, we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 members. So that's not enough for a quorum.
Okay, so we won't have a quorum. I do want to mention and welcome, we have ex officio members attending remotely. Jason Kramer from the New York State Department of Education. Hi, Jason. Anita Vigorito from the New York State Department of Health. And I believe we have Sudarsana Srinivasan from the Attorney General's office attending remotely. Is that correct?
So it doesn't have to be like.
Thank you for unmuting me. Yes, this is Darsana Srinivasan from the Healthcare Bureau at the AG's office. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Okay, so since we do not have a quorum, we'll have to table the approval of the June 7th board meeting, but we'll go right into the department subcommittee reports. The first report is the enforcement report. Ernest Delaney is going to be presenting on behalf of Renita Gann. Ernest?
Yes, good afternoon. So this enforcement report will cover the period since our last board meeting, which was June 2021, into this meeting. During that time period, since our last board meeting, the Department of State has received no new consumer complaints regarding hearing aid dispensers. However, we did close one complaint over that same time period. We closed that complaint with a hold. The allegations involved a consumer who felt that who wanted a refund of the fees they paid for the hearing aid. That licensee has not cooperated with our investigations, and his license has since expired. So we placed a hold that would allow us to readdress this matter if the licensee decides to apply to us to become licensed again, to renew his license. We have a total of 7 pending complaints remaining, and those complaints include the allegations of 3 dispensers who failed to issue a required refund. There was also 1 complaint of alleging false or misleading advertisement. one complaint concerning unlicensed activity, another complaint concerning a dispenser who offers online hearing aids, and finally, one complaint in which there was a criminal conviction against a hearing aid dispenser. During the past 12 months, we've received 10 complaints against hearing aid dispensers and one complaint alleging online hearing aid against an online hearing aid vendor. No complaints against any audiologists over the past 12 months. That concludes my enforcement report. Are there any questions?
With the online hearing aid dispenser or manufacturer company, is there any information on that regarding why it was called in? Besides that, online hearing aids in New York are not supposed to be able to do that at this time.
It just arrived to us as another consumer complaint. But
Okay.
I will have to get the further details.
Okay.
Ernest, can you get the details and maybe provide it to Denise and I? Denise can distribute that to the board after, or we can put it on the agenda for next meeting. Eric, do you want an email after
That
the
would be
meeting?
great. Yes,
Okay.
please.
Yep, that's fine. We can do that. Thank you, Ernest. I also want to mention before we go into the processing report, I did notice that Paula O'Brien is in attendance remotely, and she's from our the Division of Consumer Protection, so she's here as well. I didn't notice earlier when I was indicating who was in attendance, so I just wanted to let everyone know. Welcome, Paula. Okay, so we'll go on to the processing report. Emily Lupi.
Good afternoon, everyone. Included in the materials you were provided, you will find licensing statistics for August of 2020 and August of 2021. These reports show the number of hearing aid businesses broken down by county, a business list broken down by class code or license type, and a report of hearing aid dispensers broken down by type and by county. The 2020 numbers include only licensees and do not include those licensees whose licenses may have expired but were covered by Executive Order 202.11, which allowed individuals licensed by the Department of State to extend the expiration of their license during the state of emergency. That concludes the processing report. Did anyone have any questions?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Emily. Oh, somebody have a question? Sorry.
No.
Did any? All set? Okay, we'll move on.
Well provided.
And education report, Allison Lacey.
Good afternoon. The Bureau of Educational Standards continues to audit hearing aid dispenser renewals. Those renewals which do not indicate approval code numbers or do not appear to include T-coil infection control and New York State federal law, in addition to the balance of required hours, are not processed and sent to the Bureau for an educational compliance audit. A renewal license will only be granted when satisfactory proof of education is provided. So far in 2021, 45 licensees have been audited and 33 have complied. 6 licensees did not comply. Of the 6 pending, all are within the time frame to respond. Course availability appears to be adequate and has not been an issue raised by licensees. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Allison. Next report is the examination report. Shannon McGuire.
Good afternoon. The following statistics will cover exams that were given between January and July of 2021. The hearing aid written exam was administered to 34 applicants with a pass rate of 54%. The practical exam was administered to 50 applicants with a pass rate of 86%. And that concludes my report. Are there any questions?
On that, what is the average turnaround for getting results of the evaluation?
Currently, exams are being processed within 1 to 2 weeks of the examination date.
Okay. Now, I have in my organization, there's a few people that have taken the test. So, is there any way for them to reach out to find out? Because I believe it's been more than a few weeks, more than a couple weeks. Is there someone they could call direct?
They can send an email. The email address is exams, EXAMS,
Okay.
at dos.ny.gov.
This person.
And Denise
That
can send
didn't
that.
come through on my phone.
Denise can send
Thank
you the
you.
email
Thank
address.
you.
It'll be a lot easier. Okay.
Appreciate that.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Thank you, Shannon. All right, so we'll go on to our action items. Overview of board members' roles and responsibilities. This was something that the board asked for at the last meeting. David Mossberg.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Following up from our last meeting, we did have some newer members as well as trying to reach out to some of our ex officio members. And so we thought it would be a good opportunity to provide sort of a brief overview of actually the role and function of this advisory board is. In your meeting packets, everyone should have received a copy of the law booklet that the Department of State publishes. But what I'm going to go over is some of the specifics of that, as well as some of the original sort of intent when the board was first created, to help sort of perhaps focus some of the board's attention in terms of what is really within the scope of the board's powers to do. So just briefly, the Department of State, we began issuing licenses to hearing aid dispensers under substantially the current form of Article 37A of the GBL since July 1, 1999. At the time, it was stated that the principal purpose of the article was to provide stronger consumer protections for individuals who are purchasing hearing aids. And that does appear to be sort of a theme throughout the article, that it's focused principally on the purchasing of these devices, as well as the interaction between the dispensers as well as the consumers. So as such, the article focused on creating a strong regulatory framework governing the business of the hearing aid dispensers. The bill jacket, which explains a little bit of the legislative intent beyond what you can actually just generally see from reading the statute, went on to say that with the passage of the bill, a hearing aid dispensing board will be established with representatives of dispensers, audiologists, physicians, consumers, serving to develop recommendations for the Secretary regarding policy, standards, procedures for the business of dispensing hearing aids. And so the actual section that creates the board is Section 791 of the GBL. Consists of 13 members generally, including 4 non-voting government ex officio members, whose principal role is really to advise the other 13 members. The non-voting government members include the Secretary of State, Commissioner of Education, Commissioner of Health, the Attorney General, and/or his or her designee. Majority of the 13, regardless of the number seating on the board, is required to take action. So if there are vacancies on the board, notwithstanding those vacancies, in order to establish quorum, you'd still need majority of 13. A simple majority is sufficient. Pursuant to Section 791, the board is empowered to advise the Secretary on implementation of provisions of the law. There are several examples within Section 791 that the board can consider to make recommendations to the Secretary. Those include the rights of consumers when purchasing a hearing aid, how consumers of hearing aid devices can file complaints, the types of educational material that dispensers, so those licensed by the department, have to disclose to consumers when purchasing a device, the training and education standards to become a dispenser, the advertisements placed by dispensers, the procedures that the Secretary can use to increase awareness of how to properly purchase, fit, adjust, and use a hearing aid, as well as the rights of the purchaser of those devices. One thing that has come up in prior meetings, and I think this is one of the reasons why the board had asked us to provide sort of this overview, is that in past meetings, the board has been called upon or to discuss generally the power to advocate on issues generally related to individuals that might benefit from a hearing aid, but are not actual consumers of hearing aid dispensers or purchasers of devices. And so on these matters that are unrelated to the hearing aid dispenser, those would appear to be sort of beyond the scope of what this board should be focused on or making recommendations to the Secretary. So, for example, I recall in past years there were some discussions about the board lobbying for legislation or enforcement regarding looping in places of public accommodation and the like. While these are certainly important to the constituency, generally, they might not actually be directly related to the duties of a hearing aid dispenser and or the relationship between the consumer and the duties that a dispenser has towards the purchaser of those devices. So, one thing that we wanted to try to help the board understand is sort of those duties and roles. One thing that I thought was particularly helpful in preparing for this was looking at the original bill jacket. And there was something in the 99 bill jacket from the Attorney General's office that I thought was particularly helpful, which was the reference to the fact that this bill, or now the law, was designed to protect the consumers, to lead to the creation of a hearing aid advisory board to make recommendations to the Secretary of State regarding policies, procedures, and standards for dispensers. So it's important, I think, to remember that recommendations or actions or issues that the board decides to take upon must relate specifically to the dispensers and dispensing activities, and that, to the extent possible, the board should really focus its attention on performing those duties. So that's really all that I had with respect to trying to provide this information to the board based upon the board's last meeting. But I guess if there are any questions or concerns, I'll do my best to try to answer them.
Thank you. Mike, I do have a question relating to that particular. If we are to be advisory members of the board, which are to advise the Department of State on hearing aid purchasing, sales, and so forth, and that would then involve the technology that may be implied or utilized in those instruments for consumers to use, wouldn't it make sense that we should be able to give our information, our input as hearing care professionals, non-dispensing and dispensing audiologists, to ensure that the state gets the information as to why, in this case, looping is important, to help that go across the state and build the awareness of that as well? Or simply because we don't sell the loops, we don't do the loops?
I mean, general awareness is obviously something important, but, advocating specific, for example, legislation on, building construction, where you may have this conversation in theory without even mentioning a dispenser, right? And so there are issues which are certainly important to public health and safety. What we were trying to do is sort of focus the board's attention to matters specifically dealing with hearing aid dispensers and the business of hearing aid dispensing. So if it's a matter of, for example, helping the dispenser understand potentially the new issues that are going to come into the board's attention because of the federal legislation relating to over-the-counters. That's something that's clearly related with respect to dispensers, because at some point the dispensers, we may ask them to provide information to consumers who go to the dispensers on important information about those devices. But just advocating, generally regarding, other issues that are, maybe important to the individual person, but not necessarily to the dispenser. I don't think is productive. My personal belief is that it's not necessarily productive to the board if it's not something that's just within necessarily the board's power to make a recommendation to the Secretary of State for.
Okay, may I ask a question?
Of course.
Okay. In looking at all of the information that we were provided prior to this meeting, and one of the things that was sent was a copy of Article 37A. I reread it again, probably for the 100th time. And then I looked at something that I thought was quite important, which was definitions, because the whole bill depends upon us knowing what we're talking about. And so that is why we have these definitions in the second part of this bill in section 789. And in paragraph 7, it refers to hearing aids. And it says here, hearing aid means any wearable instrument or device designed for or offered for the purpose of aiding or compensating for impaired human hearing, and any parts, attachments, or accessories, but excluding batteries and cords or accessories thereto. And I do believe that there needs to be a change to that definition, because what we have discovered now is that hearing aids, the term hearing aid, really does not define what we should be involved with. What we need to understand is what the FDA classification is of what we should be concerned about. And because of the fact that the devices that we have been utilizing in the past were identified as a class 1, and now we have an FDA approval of a class 2, which is a self-fitting hearing aid. We really should have that definition indicate whether hearing aid means type 1 and type 2, or class 1, class 2, or just class 1, because then the need to have conversations about class 2 and perhaps class 3 when the FDA gets around to making up their mind about OTCs, then we would have a little bit more guidance, because that's what these definitions are supposed to do for us.
Right.
So, am I making any sense?
Dave,
Anybody
is
there?
there any? I'm sorry.
I didn't really. You started off by saying you had a question, so I was trying to figure out what the question was. But
the question
I think if your question is, can the board, potentially make a recommendation as necessary to amend the statute to better define the device? I think the answer to that is yes. However, because that the feds, we know, are pending review, and considering the current cycle of the state legislative cycle, logistically, it probably makes sense to wait for the federal action that we know is hopefully soon to come with the Biden administration, executive order that basically is compelling the FDA to move forward on their regs. So I think, unfortunately, like a lot of things that the board should consider, it would be most appropriate, I think, to wait for the federal action to take place so that we have a better understanding of its impact on state law and what recommendations we would need to make.
Yeah, I agree with you. We'd like to have all the cards on the table before we make a decision.
So, and that brings up another part, since we're focusing on New York State and the federal regulations aren't in fact yet happening. There are some players that are marketing over-the-counter hearing aids online as well in the state of New York, and I believe some of them are even in the state of New York. So if they're selling hearing aids, not utilizing the standards that have been established by New York State, how do we go about informing them that cease and desist, or at least tell us why you're able to do that?
I'd like to address that.
I'm leaving a particular name of the company off the table for now, unless someone else wants to bring it up, or yeah.
I'm not going to bring up anybody's name.
Right.
But I am going to tell you a little bit about other products that are sold online and shipped to residents of New York State. And when you go to order them online, there's an alert that says, I'm sorry, this item can't be shipped to residents in New York State. One thing I looked up, because I've seen it in the past, are devices that are used with firearms. And there are devices which are called magazines, and New York State has a limit on the number of rounds that can be put into a magazine and purchased by a resident of New York State. So if you go to buy one of these magazines, when you go to check out, the supplier or the online retailer will tell you, we're sorry, we can't send this to New York State. So why is it that they are able to impose New York State law on these online retailers, and we're not in a position to impose New York State law about hearing aids on online retailers?
Thank you, Peter.
So, I mean, without getting into specifics at the board, because I don't know necessarily what issues, if any, are, currently being considered or investigated by, various agencies that might have jurisdiction over this. If it is a New York State registered hearing aid dispenser licensed under Article 37A, the Department of State Division of Licensing does have jurisdiction over it. And so it could be something as an enforcement matter the Department of State, can bring on, as a purely licensing issue.
So
if, however, yes.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I know we've covered a little bit of that ground before, whereas if it's an enforcement issue, such as this possibly or probably is, unless it's a complaint to New York State by a resident of New York State, it doesn't get enforced. And my question is, being that this is an advocacy board for consumers, how can we address the advocacy department of New York State? And with the Attorney General, just so that awareness can be brought that these things are happening, and say, beyond, people don't call into New York State and complain. I have a consumer that purchased a particular online, said, "Oh, these are great for $500," and then I put them against real hearing aids in a sense. Oh my God, so much better. The value is fine if it's going to be helpful, but we don't have anything in place for our consumer protection at this current time if things are being sold currently the way they are. Now, can we get information to the AG, to the Department of Protection regarding these things? so they could step up on that, like a warning when these things are bought.
Well, as Jody had mentioned, we have representation at the board presently from the Attorney General as well as Consumer Protection. I don't think it's fair to put them on the spot at the moment and say, how
No.
are you
I'm
going to fix
not
this?
putting them on the spot. No. But how can we get the advice to them? How can they go about maybe coming to us and asking for what are your thoughts about what's going on? The sub put out some great information about OTC, DTC, and professional fitting. I think it's fantastic.
Well, those members are present, so I think certainly, having, indicated that this is a concern, I think it's fair probably to assume that those members are hearing your concern, and perhaps maybe at a future meeting, we might be able to, or they may be able to present something in terms of ideas. But I think you both just articulated the concern for consideration for, those members of the board that do have the jurisdiction potentially to address those particular concerns.
So I'd like to
I think
add.
it brought those concerns.
Yes. So that was something that I was going to indicate because I know we've had a few different topics that we mentioned, and at the time we may not have had everyone in attendance that's in today. So I think anything relevant that would require the Attorney General's office or Consumer Protection that you want reviewed prior to the next meeting, I suggest that you send it to Denise. Denise can share that information to the appropriate representative, and we can put it on the agenda if it's appropriate. We can put it on the agenda for the next meeting, and give folks an opportunity to look into these issues from their perspective. And I think that would probably answer some of the concerns that the board has had in the past, and as Dave mentioned as well, give them the opportunity to review the issues. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any additional questions for Dave on that topic? The roles and responsibilities of the board? If not, we can move on to the next item on the agenda. I do want to ask Denise during this, thank you, Dave, very much. Thank you. It's very helpful information. Was Sharon Gavin able to join us?
She is on there.
Okay, all right.
On the top.
Okay, I just wanted to indicate that Sharon Gavin is in attendance. So we have the next item on the agenda is new business, the executive order update, and that's Dave Mossberg as well.
Hi. As the board probably is aware, during the prior state of emergency, the Department of State was operating under multiple executive orders, one of which concerned the license expiration date, and one also concerned the ability to conduct hearings remotely.
Is it too loud or too soft?
The EO actually both executive orders have since been rescinded. However, I did just want to note that on September 2nd, Governor Hochul did
Just
sign
say these words for me,
bill
okay? Say popcorn.
into law to basically mirror part of the EO that allowed open meetings to be conducted virtually, which we're doing today, obviously. That is a temporary measure set to repeal January 15, 2022. So obviously the department will advise the board if there are any updates with respect to that law, but that's how we're able to conduct today's meeting virtually. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions or concerns, but if there's anything I can help with, please let me know.
Thank you, Dave.
Welcome.
The next item on the agenda is Denise tidings regarding the next advisory board meeting.
Hi, I just want to make an announcement that our last meeting of 2021 will be on Monday, December 6th at 1 p.m. I'll be in touch with the board members so that we can start setting our 2022 dates. And between now and then, if you have anything that you feel you'd like to be part of the agenda at the next meeting, please email me. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Okay, next on the agenda is the adjournment. Motion to adjourn the meeting?
Before we adjourn, could I address something? Is it
Okay.
at all possible for us to encourage the new governor to extend the executive order past January 15th? I do believe it was. At this particular time, I'm not as mobile as I used to be, and traveling to the city and on the subway is sort of an impossibility. And so if I'm required to be there physically, then I will have to reconsider my participation.
Thank you, Peter. I think, we can communicate. We don't know what's going to happen at the expiration of this executive order, and I don't know what input the department would have on that. But
Right.
Denise will communicate with you.
Okay.
Any updates that we receive or any updates we're able to. Oh, Dave has something?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention it's not actually pursuant to executive powers. This was actually legislation that Governor Hochul signed. So in order for it to be extended, another law would have to be proposed, pass both bills, and then presented to the governor for approval and signing. So this isn't something that is currently allowed unilaterally, unless, of course, the governor issues another executive order. But as Jody said, we wouldn't really be in a position to advise on that at this time.
It's coming to an end in about 5 minutes.
Thank you, Dave. But Denise will communicate with you, Peter.
Okay, thank you.
With all the board members regarding any status change to the board format. Appreciate it.
Okay, I enjoy my conversations with you people, and I'd like to continue to participate. But I don't understand why in this day and age of great technology, we can't continue to utilize the same method that we're using today.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Motion to adjourn? Anyone?
I make a motion.
Peter? Eric, second. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, Jerry.